your 15 for you use your 15 signals for emergency or anesthesia, and then your 5 signals for EM, and they're separate. There are 2 separate applications. You just use the same platform for it. I think that covers the dual application the best that I can. Anyways, anyone have questions on dual applying and the application part? Okay. If you do, feel free to type them in the chat, unmute, talk, interrupt me, it's fine. Next, we'll talk about signaling. So as mentioned, anesthesia has 2-tiered system, gold and silver. EM has 5. I'm going to pull up the signaling website in just a second. And let's see, here we go. I'll share my screen. There we go. So as you can see here, these are the signals for the programs. Each specialty is different. You get different numbers. Anesthesia, 5, gold, 10, silver. Emergency medicine, 5. Family medicine, 5. General surgery, 15. I got here just by Googling 2025 match signals and clicked on the second one down from the top. So what do signals actually mean? Well, there's been a lot of data that's come out in the last couple of years, because this is relatively new. It's like 4 years old, I think, is when the first signal started. Anesthesia just went, this is their second year for a 2-tiered system. I think this is dermatology's first year. This is diagnostic radiology's first year as a 2-tiered system. It's internal medicine's first year as a 2-tiered system. The short and sweet of it is programs are getting to the point to where if you don't signal them, they're not going to interview you. Your chance of getting an interview drastically goes down. For anesthesia, I've talked to some program directors. They've said that, you know, if you don't signal them with your 15 signals, your chance of getting an interview, the average chance of getting an interview is less than 1% across all the programs. Now, of course, you're going to have programs that, like, if you go look them up on Residency Explorer, where I show you in this tab, it's going to say that they interviewed, you know, like 5% didn't send a signal or something. That's not the normal. I mean, they may have pulled people that didn't send a signal, but signals carry a lot of weight. We have to make sure that you choose your programs appropriately. And so what does it mean to choose your program appropriately? You have to take a good look at yourself, and sometimes it takes, you know, someone else looking at your application to really understand, you know, how competitive are you for the programs that you like. You don't want to waste the gold. Like if you're doing internal medicine, you don't want to waste 2 of your gold signals on a REACH program, on both REACH programs. I'm not going to say not to do it. I just want you to recognize that you may be wasting it at that point. If you have a 215 on your step 2 score, you could very well be wasting that for a REACH program. Be realistic about where you want to apply, where you have the best chance of getting the interview. That's what these signals are for. These are all just for getting your foot in the door and getting your interview status, getting an interview invite, right? The ones with 2-tiered, some program directors say the gold doesn't matter. If you send me a gold, silver, you know, I'm more likely to look at it. There are programs that won't go outside of their gold. They will just look at their gold signals, and if they don't have to touch their silver signals, then they don't. They just look at whoever sent them gold signals, and it just varies program to program on what the program director likes to do. So that being said, how do I figure out where to use my signals or what to do? So this is the Residency Explorer. If you're not familiar with it, that's the address there. We'll log into the account. It's free to set up if you haven't set it up. I'm trying to make this screen bigger. Okay. So Residency Explorer has changed a few things recently. The layout's a little different. You can set up a profile. So let's go here and check it out. You can put in what characteristics you want to look for in a program. So, what's that? I think someone joined.
We are.
Get their mic on. Okay. Thought someone had a question. All right, so you can set your program characteristics that you want. So you can put a minimum salary, change that to 50,000. I think everyone is almost above 60. You can click if you want free parking, all this, and then what type of environment you want it to be. We'll just click this, see what comes up. You can even break it down, gender, medical student type. And then based upon like where the residents go after, how many go into fellowship? How many just go practice? You can put all this in. And it's all relatively new, like within the last 6 months, this has come out and changed. So once you do that, then you can come up here and select your specialty. We're gonna look at anesthesia, we're gonna click go. So that's set the specialty, and we'll come to explore. So here's all the programs in anesthesia. And what this does is it breaks down, as you see in this blue bar right here, it breaks down the percent of 2024 applicants that were actually invited to an interview. You can filter it by any of these. If you click it, it'll go from top to bottom, bottom to top. So this is the US IMG is the most useful one. If we filter it for anesthesia, we see that the University of Arkansas has a 42% US IMG interview rate. So let's go in and look at them a little bit more. So this generates the page just for the University of Arkansas. You come through here, you come down, you can see the year one, they have 13 PGY1s. So for some programs that are advanced, anesthesia is advanced, think dermatology is advanced. There's a couple of them that you have to have an intern year, right? So if you open up one and you see a year 1 through 4, that means that this is a categorical program, so that you can match directly into it and stay there for all 4 years. You can also see right here, whereas accredited length of training is 4, also means that it's categorical. Scrolling down through here a little bit more, here's visa information here. Tells you if they sponsor J1 or H1B. And this information is on every school that participates and sends information to Residency Explorer. This information is all the same, can be found here. This tells you how your profile selections align with the program, where we went and selected training years for 0 through 100. That was just a weird number, but you can see the check marks here. It aligns with what we put in, because we put 0 to 100. This program is 4 years. This program has 55 total residents, which is 0 through 100. So you can see how your profile lines up with what you put in, and you can make it really detailed if you want, I should say. As you can see, the more you add, the more you can scroll and really see. And I'll show you back on the other page. It tells you how many actually line up with it. Here you can see the salary and the sick leave and the paid time off. Going down to the biggest change here is the applicants invited to interview. Tells you how many applications they got, and tells you how many people they invited. So they have a almost 27% interview rate. It's fairly high.
You hear me? Do not let me catch you sitting on my damn sofa. I see.
Don't sit on the sofa, okay? Yeah. Anyways, we have 27%. That's a high interview rate, right? So let's break it down a little bit more. You can come here and you can see that they interviewed, of their interviews that went out, they sent 100. They sent 100% to gold signals, 100% to silver signals. These are people who accepted the interviews. So Going down geographic preference, you can see 38% aligned, 19 didn't. In-state, out-of-state. This is very confusing to me, and I haven't figured out what it means because these numbers don't really make sense to me. It could be that they are interviewing, people who have failed before, because they do have a very high non-US IMG rate and US IMG rate. When, just statistically speaking, these two populations of students have more failures on step 1 and 2. So this particular program might not, might say that they don't look at the scores too much. They look at the overall application and do like the holistic review that you hear about all the time. Let's dive a little bit more. If you come here to the click here, this breaks down the applicants. Of all 1,300 that applied, 74% did not send a signal. 66% sent a silver signal, and 29 sent a gold, 5%. This is what was invited to the interview. 5% did not send a signal from what was sent and then interviewed. Sorry. I'll say that again because I butchered it. From all the applicants that applied, 74% did not send a silver, 8% sent a gold, and 18% sent a silver. Now, from all the applicants that did that, they interviewed 66% of the silvers. You can do some math and go backwards, and you can get the actual number of interviews that they sent out from it. So 18% of 1,368. If you do that and then take 68% or 66% of that, you'll have how many interviews they sent to the silver signals versus how many silver signals they got. You can do the same for gold. You can do the same for any of that. So as you come down, I'm skipping over a lot of this because this is just geographic preference, hometown state, USMLE steps. So you can see here that 97% of the people never failed, but 3% did fail, and then 3% were still invited to the interview. Same for step 2, 2% had failed from all applications, and then 3% of the interviews that were people who were invited, 3% had failed step 2. So down here, this is the more important one, applicant type. Really lets you look at the IMG status. So of all applicants that applied, 18% were IMGs. And then of the 18% of the 1,300, 27% of them were invited to an interview. And again, if you do the math, you can get the exact number that were invited. I think if roughly this is like 68 or something like that was invited. I did it one day and I'm trying to remember, but I think it was like 68 IMGs were invited. So if you come back, so it's 68 out of 372 total interviews. Only 68 of them were IMGs. That's the new stuff. It can give you a lot of information about how likely you are to be looked at as an IMG, how many interviews they realistically give out. And then you can see minimum scores here. You can see what's required for USMLE stuff. And then going down more, you can see demographic information. And then you can see where their residents have traditionally come from. So this particular program, they have a lot of SGU, because I would say SGU students probably rotate there or something. We have 4% Ross. And then these are also not, not cumulative. So it's like current residents. These are like the residents who are there right now. This is what this is calculated off of. And then you can click here and see a more complete list too if you want. Then you can see where the graduates go after the residency. So 44% go on to fellowship, 33% go to practice full time. That's pretty much it. There's a lot of confusing information here. So if you have questions, please ask. We can go through it again. We can cover it. It took me a little bit to figure this out. There is a webinar that Residency Explorer did, that we'll put the link to that up on our website and put it in our WhatsApp chat as well. But if you want more information to break it down, that's what it's how I've understood it so far. So open this up for questions. Anyone have anything?
Ryan, I have a quick question. I know like I've heard a lot about signaling and how obviously you might not even get an interview if you don't signal. So are people ever considering reducing the number of applications you like number of programs, given that you might not even be overlooked instead of dropping a couple grand? What are your thoughts on?
That's a really good question, right? And if you ask someone from Ross, they're still going to tell you to apply to like 150 to 100 per specialty.
Right.
Because traditionally, Ross seems to, I should say, lag behind the trends that are happening in the US. So we're seeing it in the data, and I can really speak to just anesthesia because I've devoted most of my time to that because that's what I'm applying to. Podcast that I listen to from, this is the agency that sets like recommendations for program directors in anesthesia. This was the president of that organization doing the podcast, and he was talking about data for anesthesia. He said that of all interviews that were given out across all programs, 60 to 65% of the interviews went to someone who sent a gold signal.
Okay.
30 to 35% went to someone who sent a silver signal. And so if you do the math, there's just not much there for people who did not send a signal, right?
Right.
I have to assume that that somewhat aligns with the other programs that have the dual signaling, the gold and silver. As mentioned before, this is the first year for internal medicine. Second year, maybe, I think it's second year for OB-GYN to where they have the dual as well. So I just have to assume that it's letting them be more picky about who they're interviewing. They lost the step one filter, right? So what are they going to replace it with? Well, we can replace it with gold signals. If you don't send us a gold signal, we're not going to look at your application.
Right.
Some programs have that mentality. It's hard to say. I mean, I definitely am not going to apply to 150 anesthesia programs. I feel like I'm wasting my money for that based on the data. Personally, I will probably end up applying to probably like 50, just throw a few out there just in case.
Yeah.
There are some specialties like emergency medicine, they actually decreased their signaling. They went from 7 signals last year to 5 this year. And then they said that if you did an away rotation at wherever you went, you don't need to signal that place. That's unique as far as I know with emergency medicine. Most places, they still want you to send a signal if you did a sub-I there, right? So that kind of plays into signaling as far as that goes. Like I'm gonna dual apply probably just to like 5 EM ones as a backup, because if I go beyond that, then they're gonna know that they're number 6 on my list if I was applying for my top choice, right? Consider that when you're assigning your signals too. They know that if they don't get a signal, they're number 16 for anesthesia, 7 for emergency medicine. What is it, like 15 for internal as well? So.
Right. Okay. That's helpful. It's something I've been struggling with, just finishing my list. And I'm like, I think I'm at 55 right now. And I'm like, if I have 10 for psych, I mean, everyone's going to know 11, 15, 20 on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here, if you're doing psych, let's take a look at psych. Let's pull it up on here. Let me share my screen again. We'll just change it to psych. Psych is another one that kind of got competitive in the last couple of years. All right, so here we go with psych. So before, these numbers were different before. It just said like US IMGs, and that gave you a percentage of how many residents were US IMGs, and this is actual interview rates now. So before, we used to have numbers like, 60%, 40%, and it would go all the way down to like 10, 5, whatever. And now we're seeing that this number is a lot lower, and that's because it's interview rate and not what it was last year. So like, even if you were to come here and apply to the top 50 programs, I'm just gonna scroll down here. This is probably around 50. You're at the 5%. And it's like you're not making much headway going sub 50, like 5, 8, 9. They're not big jumps. That's all I'm trying to make.
Right.
These small changes. So it's really dependent on, what research are you able to do on the program? Do you have any connections? Do you know anyone that knows someone at the program who can put in a word for you to just make sure that your application gets looked at? A lot of networking can be there too. Some people, they have the extra money and they'll be like, I'm going to apply to everything above 2%. They want that chance.
Mhm.
But I'm struggling with trying to find enough programs too, and like debating whether or not it's worth it, because it's less than a 1% chance. I mean, that goes for US students as well. Like, it's a less than 1% chance for US students, and if that's for US students, even less for IMGs.
Right. Thank you. That's refreshing to hear, because you get one thing, 150, and you're like, is anyone seeing the stats? Because it's not really, I mean,
If you go look at the data that's available on Residency Explorer, you can see that it's signaling has taken away the ability for IMGs to cast the net very wide. So you
yeah,
have to be way more selective, way more realistic about where am I the most competitive at? Where do I stand the best chance to go? And unfortunately, that will cut into like, where do I want to go? It may not be where I want to go, where I am best competitive at. So,
absolutely.
but you kind of have to swallow your pride on that one a little bit if you want to have a
Yeah.
really good shot. So,
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I appreciate, just talking to someone also that's just going through it and not just someone on the admin side.
I helped someone go through match last time as well, and a lot of this is still relatively new. Like, um, they went through OB-GYN, and they ended up doing soap, but while they were doing soap, we looked through Reddit, right? Like, we trolled through Reddit. We tried to see like, okay, what's people like who are not matching, right? And last year, this goes for OB-GYN, anesthesia. You're like really competitive ones. And actually, even in IM, there were some like this. We had people that were posting saying, I made 250 on step 2. I got 3-4 research articles. And it's like, I didn't match. Right. They had like all this good stuff. First time past step 1, and they didn't match. And so the question is, why didn't you match? Did you not use your signals appropriately? Did you, because last year, IM didn't have the dual signaling, right? But let's say anesthesia did. So did you not use your signaling appropriately? Did you spend all 5 of your golds on where you wanted to go and not where you were most competitive?
Exactly.
So it really makes us as IMGs really take a hard look at ourselves, and maybe even get someone else to look at our application. And it doesn't have to be someone at Ross. Reach out to, if you have an alumni friend or anyone who's matched last year, say, hey, take a look at this, and maybe they can put you in contact with someone at the program and be like, hey, can you take a look at my friend? You never know who someone, might know. That's what I've really learned. The networking can be invaluable. So.
For sure. And the nice thing is when the Rossis are there, there's like a different dynamic. I've noticed a couple of programs. I'm like, I'd actually want to go there
Yeah,
because there's some camaraderie and it makes a difference. So yeah.
for sure. I agree with that. There's a little camaraderie, and then I think having some raw students go to programs can kind of open the door for others. Especially if they're the first ones to go. There's a reason that they were selected, right? They're good students. They're easy to get along with. So it's kind of like, well, I had a really good experience with Grace. Let me interview some other people, right? So yeah, don't
For
be
sure.
afraid to use that avenue as well.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? This is your time to ask any questions at all. It doesn't have to be, just about what I've talked about at this time. You can put it
I
in
have
the
a
chat.
question.
Oh yeah, go for it. Sorry.
So I saw that I guess the graduation dates for people that were listed as graduating November 2025 was fixed. Thank you guys for that.
Mhm.
I also was wondering what the, I guess, purpose, maybe, I don't know if you can answer that question, maybe somebody else from clinical affairs, what the purpose of having just the two graduation dates is, because that kind of messes up getting our certifications on time and things like that. So I was wondering if there was any way to get that done without going through the process of like applying for a special graduation and having to go through that process. And I've seen people go through that process and it is
It,
a
it can be
process.
a pain for sure, right? So I can't speak as to why exactly Ross has those dates set and why they don't have one closer to like June even, right?
Mhm.
You know, you just have to be finished, and maybe it has to do with paperwork and stuff. So like if you finish, what is it right now? April and May, those are the graduation dates, I think, right? So if you finish in May, you have to, I think it has to do with processing the paperwork, if I had to think about it, because once you get your diploma, you then have to upload it to the ECFMG, and you have to get your ECFMG certification back, which the residency program has to have before they will let you start working. So if they don't have it by July 1st, then it's a big problem. So probably in effort to minimize that, they put the cutoff at May to give you, you know, 8 weeks or so, right? To get everything done. Or longer. But you know, it can be a problem. I can't speak as to why, but I am happy that we were able to change just the graduation date for some people. Just to speak a little bit more about that, it was a unique situation that happened with just April beginning one day off from a Monday, which threw everyone who was beginning their last clerkship in April into a November graduation date. So, did I answer your question, or did I just ramble about something else?
No, you did. But like, yeah, I think that's a clinical affairs, I guess, question.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately higher than our friend Javier. He has no idea what that is or why they picked that. What we can do is we can follow up. We can ask. You know, we can take it through our channels and ask Dr. Vivek or Monica. I'm not sure who would be the appropriate one to ask, but we can figure it out, and then we can follow up with you or
Alright.
make an announcement or something.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's definitely Vivek. That's
Okay.
an academic curriculum question, so
Okay. And I also don't know, like, why is it? Well, I guess I understand why it like jumps to November afterwards, but because you're not going to be doing anything. Okay. We have a question in the chat. Do you think we should submit the app tomorrow or like later this month? You should. There's no rush to submit the app tomorrow, September 4th. Residency programs, one, I don't think they see the actual date
Nope.
that you submit it. It's not timestamped or anything.
nope.
They can access the system and pull all the applications September 25th at like 9 a.m. or something like that.
hmm
And so as long as it's in there and everything is assigned to where you need it to be, meaning your documents, the way that it works, you have to go in and individually assign your letters of recommendation to the programs that you want. You have to individually assign your transcripts and individually assign a bunch of stuff, right? So I will say that there's no rush to get it done by the date. The closer you get to the date, especially like the night before, the system will lag out and it will take hours for you to put in your documents, just because everyone is waiting. That so there's no advantage as far as submitting it tomorrow versus the night before, except you're gonna be very nervous that you're not gonna make the deadline if you're lagging out and it takes 30 minutes to upload one document. That's an exaggeration. It doesn't take 30 minutes to do each document. It could take about 5 though. I think it took about 5 minutes for us to do it last year for each document, and that adds up. And then the next question you put in there, are programs reviewing by when the app was submitted? Oh yeah, we answered that. They're just pulling the data at once.
Yeah.
One thing I will comment on this too, programs will pull the data once. They're guaranteed to pull the data once. They may or may not go back and pull the data again. So if you don't have everything submitted and attached to where it needs to go, they may or may not get the updated information as it comes in. So be on top of your letter writers now. You know, I sent out a very generic email. In fact, I'll show it to you if you guys want to see it, just so you can see how I worded it. Just got an answer today for one, so that's why I can show you. So this was here's the generic email I sent out. You know, hi, insert doctor's name. Hope the message finds you well. I previously sent you a request on insert the date, and then explain the process of how our letters have to go through ECFMG first, and then they get uploaded to ERAS, and so it takes a longer time. And it, you know, the 5 to 10 business days is, I think, like what they say it can take up to. It's so faster right now because there's not a lot of people using the service. You know, like as the letters come in, it's going to get bogged down, and it is going to take that 5 to 10 business days. So like as you can see here, I just backtracked from September 25th, 5 to 10 business days would be September 9th. And just to give them a deadline to be like around this time. All right. It's just a gentle reminder email saying, hey, thanks for this. I'm just checking up on it. I would suggest drafting something like that, sending it to your letter writers. So you're not, you know, it's not annoying them too much, but you're just following up because you need the letter. And then on that topic as well, you can still submit your applications without the letter of recommendation. Programs do know that that is kind of out of your control because you are waiting for someone else to get the letter and upload it. So while it may not be a complete application with, if you're missing a letter, I think that they would, you know, if that's the only thing that's missing, it's like less of a problem, I should say, right? Because they know sometimes it's out of your control. Because you asked for a letter 2 months ago and you follow up and you follow up and you follow up, and they don't do it until the night before or something, right? So. I've got another question here. Does Ross send electronic and physical versions of our diploma? No, they send I don't know if they send an electronic one.
I believe they do. Because I know you need that for, you need a digital version of it for.
Oh, yes, they do. They do send you a digital version. And you have to go through some steps to download it. You actually have to go to like this secure platform and download it. And then they do send you a physical version. That physical version gets sent to your address that's on file with Ross. So if like you need to make sure that that's up to date too. Don't want your medical diploma going to the place that you used to live. Yeah. And then your ECFMG certificate will also go to the address that's registered with ECFMG, I think, or I don't know if, yeah, probably ECFMG. Just make sure you put the right addresses in. That's all I'm trying to say. Any other questions, comments? Happy to answer anything I can. And if we can't get the answer for you, or if I can't answer it or Javier can't answer it, we will get the answer for you and follow up.
Hi, I have a question. So I
Sure.
came in late, so I missed a little bit of your dual applying. But say for a dual applying to general and anesthesia, like, have you applied to the same program, like both at the same program, same hospital?
That's a tough question, right? Because I've heard it go both ways. To one, it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. And two, it's like, it does matter because they're going to find out that you've applied to IM and anesthesia, and then the
They
anesthesia
do, right? Yeah, that's what I thought.
might
They
be
do.
like, oh, you're not committed to it, so why are we going to waste our time?
Okay.
Especially like if you're considering anesthesia, especially right now,
Mhm.
anesthesia is super competitive. There were about 5,000 total applicants last year for about 2,100 spots.
Wow.
Looking at the data even more, I think that I don't know where it is, or I'd pull it up for you to show you right now. But there's data that was sent out that says that, you know, people whose number one preference, it shows them like, if your number one preference was this specialty, it gives you a percentage of how many people actually matched into that specialty, right?
Got it.
For US medical students, it was still under 50% for anesthesia. And then for IMGs, it was like in the 40s, like mid 40s, I think. So it is just super competitive. That's the reality of it right now.
Of course. And thank you. And then the other question I have is like, say you're waiting on a rotation from which you'll get a letter, but it's not until like October. So can you then submit when you have that letter later, like in October?
I mean, you could submit. Your application should already be in, and just be, and then you can go back and assign a letter afterwards.
Okay.
So, but
And
your application should be ready and downloaded on the 25th. And then, if you're really interested in the program, you could maybe email the coordinator and say like, "Hey, I know I'm missing this letter. I've contacted the person."
Okay. Yeah.
Like,
So
maybe.
we can start. So our deadline is what, the 25th, you said?
The 25th is when the programs will access it. The 25th
Okay.
at 9 a.m. They access the system and download all the data.
Okay, thank you. And then when does Ross like give us our statement, all that? Is it uploaded?
They have
Your MSP, is that what you're
Yeah, the
talking
MSP and all that,
like
and the transcript.
this week, I think, actually.
Yeah, so that they'll start uploading MSPs on the 9th of September.
Next week. So.
And we'll see it where on our My ERAS, or what is it?
Yeah, the only thing that you'll be able to see is like basically like a green check mark on that spot.
Okay.
It was uploaded,
Okay.
as well with your transcript too.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay,
Mhm.
thanks a lot. That's
Of
all my
course.
question.
Yeah.
I'll show you where it is real quick, just for completeness. Documents.
Yeah, right there.
Here. This will go green. Both of these will go green when they're uploaded.
Ryan, I have a really dumb question, but just seeing yours, my professional headshot, I used the dimensions as per ERAS, but that little circular thing, half my head's cut off. So did you just like?
Don't worry about the circular thing, the circle part. Don't worry about that. Let me show you here.
I know it's so silly, but I'm like,
you're saying right here, it's like cut your head off.
yeah.
And
I mean, I gotta
click here and click preview. What is it like? What does it look like there?
So on a computer, it's still weird, but then on my phone, like on app, it's completely fine. It's happened to a few of my colleagues, so I'm not so sure.
I've been told that like if it's not super weird here where like half your head is cut off, that it should be fine.
Okay.
Like now I have been told that like sometimes this circle image can look very weird and your head can be cut off. But as long as this isn't too bad, like as long as this is okay, then it's not a big deal.
I just knew like they gave dimensions and I was like, do we need to be gung-ho on that? Or
you can also like resize the image if you need to. There's a I've used this one before.
Okay, yeah.
You just drop it in and then select the size and you can play around with it if you want.
Awesome.
If you can use that, or if you're an Apple user, you can like actually resize the image in preview. But that website's the easier way to do it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Brittany says you can crop it on your phone and computer and re-upload it into ECFMG. Yeah, you can use the photo editor on your iPhone to change it to that. Any other questions? Another question, here we go. Do we send OET scores somewhere to ECFMG? No, ECFMG does not have that. You have to go into your OET account and you have to release that score to ECFMG, I think. And then once you release it, it'll show up. But you have to release it to them. You have to go put your ECFMG number in and all that. So that's done through the OET hub. No problem.
Quick question for the photo. If I'm not getting it done till this week, is that a big deal? Like, do programs check before this 25th? Okay. And then do I have to have that OET before the 25th?
No,
No, you don't.
no. The OET has to be done before December, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to do it soon. I just want to double check.
yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to have OET finished to apply.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Doesn't even show up on your application.
Right on. Okay. Thank you so much.
Right, I want to mention something because I just submitted my OET like last week. So you go on and like on your OET login, you submit it to ECFMG, but they started sharing a new link. I put it in the WhatsApp 2025 group like a couple weeks ago, but there's a link, you put in your ECFMG number. It's like a two-step process. So I'll just drop it in the chat again. Let me find it, but it is something you did. Okay, cool. Thank you.
I did. Please drop it. Yeah.
Okay, 1 second.
I've just scheduled OET for next week, so I haven't taken it yet. I'm just remembering what people have done last year in the process. Thank you. OET, for anyone who hasn't taken it, it does seem very straightforward. Everyone has told me that people fail the exam for not knowing the layout of the exam, for not knowing the expectations from you in each section, because it is timed and you have to get through it. But it is very straightforward. I did a practice test and it was very straightforward. The writing part is the part where most people fail because, again, they don't know the structure that they want. They don't, like they being students, they don't understand that to write the letter, they want it a certain way. They want certain things in there that you have to put in that you may not think about. So.
And I was also told they've been scoring really difficult lately. So if like you get it back and you failed, you can appeal, but make sure you do it within like 24 hours. And then they usually always pass you. So just putting that out there.
All right. Yeah, the practice test said, you should keep it to 180 to 200 words maximum that I did. So, I mean, even with that, the one practice test I did, it seemed reasonable. Like I was just it made me write a letter to a nursing home where this patient was going back to. And so there was one point to where I was at like 150 words. And I was like, I don't know what else to put in here because I've included everything that's pertinent for this person. And that's when I was like, oh, I probably have to include like letter form. I have to put like name, address, city, date, all that. And so that's what I didn't even think about it until I was like, I'm only at 150. I'm missing something, right? So. Oh, that's cool. This is new. Yeah, I've clicked on the link that you shared. They didn't have that last time, I don't think.
I didn't know until I called them and they're like, oh, you also need to do this. Otherwise your scores won't be sent. And I was like, thank you so much for not telling us on your website.
Yeah. It's not a very good system. I've tried to reach out to them for some help, but they're just like not very helpful. Feel free to ask any other questions. I mean, it is 9. Feel free to take off as well. You don't have to stay. If if you have questions after you leave, feel free to reach out to me. But I'll put the CSGA president email.
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's like a number of prelim programs that people say to apply to? Because I can't seem to find a number online.
The prelim, that's a good point. I didn't talk about that. Let me pull up something real quick. Okay. So, first of all, the prelim information, that is something that the OCA is going to talk about, but it's like they do recommend that, you know, advanced positions. Let me see. Hold on. The amount of programs they apply really depends on the competitiveness for the specialty you're applying to. So again, you have to take a good look at yourself. This I'm reading from what Monica has sent me for this, by the way. So this is coming from the OCA. Generally speaking, prelim and transitional years are less competitive than advanced positions. So they are saying apply anywhere from 50 to 100 prelim positions, which I don't know if that's the case, because signaling for like transitional year, like if you plan to do a transitional year, you get 12 signals for that. I don't know if there's signaling for prelim IM or prelim surgery.
Yeah, I can't really find that information online, or even just like a number of programs that people say to apply to.
Well, 50 to 100 is what Ross is saying, but that's probably a little dated because, like I just said, signaling. Like transitional years, you get 12 signals, so I'm not going to apply to 50 programs if there's 12 or 100 programs if there's 12 signals.
Yeah, definitely.
Let me look up the. Yeah. Also, when you go in and you're matching to prelim, right? And let's say it's March and we open up and it says congratulations, you matched. Well, that letter will come in one of three forms. It will say congratulations, you matched to into your PGY1 position. You are not eligible for SOAP. And what that means, like if I'm playing anesthesia, that means that I matched into a categorical position because it says I matched PGY1 and I'm not eligible for SOAP. Now, if I matched into a preliminary position, it will say you matched into PGY1 and you are eligible for SOAP. That means that I did not match into my advanced spot. Now, flip it around, it say congratulations, you matched into your PGY2 spot and you are eligible for SOAP. That means you got your advanced and you didn't get your prelim. It's not a huge problem going into SOAP and not having a prelims position. They're usually very available. Last year, I want to say there were like 200 surgical prelims available, and then like 200 plus IM prelims available, and then 100 plus transitional years available. So like it's out there. Now, is it going to be the place that you want? No, because you didn't match the place you wanted, but you match to your advanced spot, and so you just go do your year wherever it is and get it over with. As far as number goes, I would say probably, I mean, at least 50, I would say. But I'm not sure how the rank list works either for that. That's something that we'll cover when we get closer to rank list. We'll have another CSGA Connect. We'll talk about rank list, how you rank preliminaries and transitional years versus advanced versus dual applying as well. But we'll cover that in January or February or something.
Yeah, I would love to know that. Thank you, Ryan. This was really helpful.
Yeah, happy to help.
Thanks again, Ryan. Appreciate you.
Yep, happy to help. Any other questions? Anyone else have issues they want to talk about? All right. Well, get out of here, guys. Have a good night. If you don't have any questions, we can You can stop the recording and I'll hang out just a little bit in case someone has a question or.
Thanks a lot. If I come up with a question later, can I email you or?
Yeah, I put the